It makes it sound like women are sort of conspiring behind the scenes. And some of them are, of course, but quite a lot of them aren't even aware that they're doing those things.
Hi, and welcome to, or back to, my channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions about whatever catches my attention. I'm Kit, this is my assistant, Mr. O, and today, while Chris Williamson had Dr. Robert King on to discuss why the female orgasm exists. I could not make this stuff up. Curiously, this is another conversation about women that involves no women. Not so curiously, Dr. King is also interested in evopsych. Setting that aside, though, the conversation starts off fine, normal even. Chris asks questions, Dr. King answers. And then, unsurprisingly, because this is Chris Williamson talking about women, it goes sideways. But first, talking about predictors for a woman to have an orgasm, this was just too funny not to share.
Because there are some sort of fairly obvious things that make males attractive that, as far as we know so far, aren't predictive of orgasm. So, I mean, I haven't done this research myself, but Dan Nettle and I've just forgotten the guy's name, his student at the time, Tom, it'll come back to me. They looked at things like finance, and that didn't seem to have an effect.
No, you don't say. A woman can't just think of a guy's income and have an orgasm? I'm shocked.
I think some people have looked at height, and that doesn't seem to have had an effect.
What? I can't just think, he's a foot taller than me. An orgasm? Crazy. There is a part of me that feels kind of bad for laughing because he's just trying to help. But is he? Neither of these two are here to tell men how to help a woman orgasm. They're just there to theorize about why such a thing exists when it doesn't seem especially useful. And yes, of course, they talk about how it seems to aid in conception. Chris is nothing if not consistent in his obsession about procreation, despite not having done so himself. And he, of course, makes sure to include his other favorite line.
But for the most part, you know, the most talented woman on the planet is competing with a 21-year-old barista from Starbucks.
And again, that is not true. Those high-value men Chris speaks of are not looking to date or marry someone simply because they're young and hot. If you're a young woman, you can't just get a cashier job and trust that, if you're attractive enough, you'll be taken away from a life of customer service. Chris is doing everyone a disservice by talking this way. He acts as though men's standards are on the floor, which is not a good thing. And he acts as though what women do doesn't matter, which also isn't a good thing. Being a full human is important, I promise you. People do care about things besides money and good looks. Anyway, here's another favorite of Chris's.
I think it's fascinating to observe the kind of very fine scalpel that women use. The way, like venting. Have you looked at venting much?
Nope.
Oh, sit down.
Tell me about venting.
Let me spin you a yarn. So venting is a really unique type of gossip. Venting is gossip disguised as compassion. So if I'm saying to you, I'm Christina, you're Regina, and I'm saying, Regina, I'm really worried about Emma. You know, she's just sleeping with all of these guys. And I'm just really worried that she's going to get hurt or, you know, like it's just, I mean, I would never, I couldn't do that. Like, I couldn't do that to myself. I'm just really worried about her. And so what am I saying? In that short sentence, what am I telling you? I'm telling you about how much sex she's having. I'm positioning myself morally in terms of purity, fecundity, all that sort of stuff above I would never. It allows me to derogate a potential sexual rival whilst couching it in care and compassion. So if I ever get called up, it's look, I'm sorry, but I'm just worried about you. And I didn't think she was going to tell anybody either. And
right.
Dude, and guys are just, it just goes past us.
Well, it hasn't gone past Chris. He must be very smart. But in all seriousness, well, first, that is not venting. Venting is when someone does something stupid and or annoying, like, for example, never happened to me, of course, but let's say a car goes around your car at a stoplight, and you vent to your friends about that person's stupidity. What Chris just described is gossip under the guise of care. And in my opinion, what Chris describes is often the behavior of teenagers, and for some reason, he can't quite grasp that as people grow older, they age out of teenage behaviors. 30-year-old men don't get into physical fights as often as 16-year-old boys. 30-year-old women don't gossip under the guise of concern like 16-year-old girls do. And of course, your friends having sex is much less of a shock at age 30 than it is at age 16. But that is pretty common with these red pill and red pill light folks. They take the behavior of teenagers and try to apply it to adults. And Dr. King confirms this for me by stating that when he was a teacher, his students asked why they didn't study female-female competition, and they made him watch Mean Girls. I wonder if this ties into society's obsession with women being eternally young. Now, it's not only youthful looks you need to maintain, but youthful behavior as well. But anyway, Chris is going to show off to the doctor.
I'm just going to go down the intersexual thing. I want to show off to you for a second. The reason that female intersexual competition is so subtle and couched and deniable, I think that's really, really important, the fact that the deniability of it. The reason for that is that on average, women are more fragile and more valuable, right? You can't afford to lose them, and they are easier to kill, basically, is one way to
and also frequently, I think, in history, not around their kin. I think that's a big feature as well.
Away. Yeah, they've
had to form coalitions, yeah.
Yeah, what's that called? Patrilocal?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been patrilocalized, I guess. And what this means is if you try to start a fight with fists as a woman, well, the woman that's up against you, like the damage is going to be maybe quite high, and it's a big risk and all the rest of it. So you have to use these very subtle forms of status interplay. And one of the real concerns, again, because there is a guy at the top, but the guys tend to be more collaborative when it comes to looking at how the status hierarchy works, because someone can be really great in one area but not in the other. Whereas, this might be a controversial thing to say, the winner takes all happens for women too, right? Because they get the guy who's got the most resources. So they're downstream from his level of status also. And there's this really great study. I think it was Joyce Benenson that did, I can't remember quite who did it. Female basketball players on the same team show less physical affection to each other than male basketball players on opposite teams.
Yeah, I remember the study. Yes,
that was fucking interesting.
I'm not really sure what female basketball players have to do with anything, but women have to be subtle in how we sabotage one another or we'll kill each other. Does Chris think all women that form a friendship are just looking for ways to undermine the other? Does Chris think that women are just looking for the most high-status man, however that would even be determined because everyone is looking for something different, and we, assume other women are interested in the same man? What if we're all different ages? What if some of us aren't single? What if some of us aren't even interested in men? I have so many questions, but based on other things Chris has said about this subject, I don't think he believes women can form actual friendships with other women.
A lot of the money that gets spent by women is beautification, but beautification is something that's picked up by men. But there are certain types of, I guess, enhancement in some ways, or certain types of expenditure that are only picked up by women. And these are the ones that are really interesting. And, a niche collector's edition handbag.
Oh, yeah. Like that £8 million one that was sold the other day.
I didn't see that, but I imagine probably something like that. And you go, okay, well, what is that saying? It's saying only to other women, beware. My husband is so invested in me that he's got this fucking niche Mulberry bag that's got the orange liner and the longer strap, whatever. So it's a special type of signal like that.
And it goes right over our heads because most women don't keep up with what level of luxury you have to be at to afford £8 million handbags. And we also don't care because we don't know your husband. Also, if that's supposed to be a signal to women, don't mess with my man, look how invested he is in me, does that mean Botox and all that is a signifier to men? I would like you to be interested in me. Per Chris, those beauty signifiers are for men to pick up on, so does anyone else find these Evo-psych attempts to put everything into a mating box confusing? People do things because they like the thing or they want to look good or, well, what they think looks good. It's not about signaling or whatever. Did Chris perm his hair because he thinks that will attract women? Is he wearing his baseball cap backwards because he thinks that will signal his dominance to other men? Or does he just think he looks good? Or his hat fits better that way?
I'm going to have to be really crude because I can't remember a fucking name. Who is the blonde-haired, big-boobed sex researcher who did the come-on face research?
Well, we are talking about how women enjoy dark romance, and Chris does at least note that just because some women enjoy reading it doesn't mean they want to date a man like one of the books. Just like because some men enjoy certain types of porn, that doesn't mean they want to date one of the women in the films. All well and good, and then I'm not really sure what Chris means by orbiting pool. Is he talking about women who have fans or women who have male friends, or both? Fellas, is cuckoldry your main concern?
The main concern that you have as a guy is cuckoldry. And if you've got this orbiting pool of a bunch of other men, that makes that partner less desirable because you think, well, fuck, how much additional energy am I going to have to expend with my mate guarding and my jealousy and my intrasexual and intersexual competition, all this bullshit?
I just have doubts. If that was truly my main concern in a relationship, I would talk it out with my partner and my therapist if I could afford one. And if that didn't help, I would end the relationship. Because if it's all in my head, they deserve better. And if there's reason for me to be paranoid about cheating, I deserve better. Anyway, Chris begins talking about the Notebook and what?
The Notebook's a really great example of this. It's a commentary on the romanticization of the kind of hopeless thug, in a way, the kind of noble thug, you might be able to say. So the Notebook's a fucking great example of this, because you have a guy who is kind of good as a handyman but can't really hold down a job and is passionate but kind of loose.
What? We see Noah, the main male character, working in a lumber yard and then going into the military. Where did Chris get the idea he couldn't hold down a job? The issue wasn't employment, or lack of. The parents had a problem with how much money he made, or rather how little he made, and I would also say his job lacked enough prestige to their eyes. And he was loose? We see him sleep with one woman because he was lonely.
He is victorious up against a decorated war hero who is a successful business person and really slick and equally attractive or whatever. And the same meta, I wonder what this is feeding into, because as we've said before, if female desire can be mediated by other females' desire, you have to assume that female desire can be mediated by culture as well. What are the archetypes that we think are part of our... Was your sexual awakening a bad boy, or was your sexual awakening a clean pop star or whatever? That has to color the way that you look.
What was even the point of bringing up the Notebook? Anyway, they rehash the 4 predictors of an orgasm, and I would just like to say in advance that I am so sorry, and yes, if I have to suffer, so do you.
Just do a recap for me of what the predictors are. It was good smell, so immunocompatibility.
Yeah.
It was dominance.
Dominance, penetrative vigor, and also
penetrative vigor.
Yeah. Yeah, we went there. Yeah. And also considerate. So
okay, give me. We're not moving on beyond penetrative vigor, I'm afraid.
Okay.
What's that?
Well, okay. So humans have got the largest penises of any primates, and
Champion,
they also.
Let's go.
It sounds like I'm boasting. But yeah, we're bigger than gorillas. Well, gorillas compete with their. This one, your listeners, I'm sure gorillas compete with their big 400-pound bodies, but they've got tiny testicles and tiny penises. Chimps are somewhat stronger and they're less sexually dimorphic, but their penises aren't as large. Bonobos are as long as ours, but they're not as thick. But also chimps and bonobos are highly promiscuous, and so their testicles are huge because they're producing a lot of spermatogenetic material. With humans, one of the things we seem to be competing with is penis size, because we are larger than the other primates, and there are some supposed explanations of this based on the head size in the womb. I go into some detail in the book why I think that's unlikely to be the case. Why that's
just to linger there. Is there a suggestion or a theory that human penises need to be bigger because babies' heads need to be bigger, which means that women's vaginas need to be sufficiently sized, which means that the penis is playing catch up to the baby head, because if it didn't, female pleasure wouldn't be able to be reached.
And now I quietly die inside. I'm very confused because they started the video, seemed to talk about the clitoris, but now they're talking as though women reach orgasm through penetrative vigor. All the things I say on this channel. And I want to be clear, there are women who can have vaginal orgasms. It's just not the most common way. But am I really surprised that a video about the female orgasm, as discussed by two men, focuses on penis? Not really. What is my life?
Our penises were in an arms race against our own babies.
Oh, Chris. He does know the vagina is elastic, right? Anyway, they talk about how women can get there and wonder why for some it's so easy and for others it's not. Well, thank God we have these geniuses working on the case.
The simple, honest answer is we don't know. And I wouldn't want to suggest that my book is a clinical work. So, there could be things that are clinically up with people. There could be drug interactions. There could be hormonal interactions. All of that aside, what the things that part of the things that confuse it is that it's for a variety of reasons. Women will have sex when they're not aroused. They could be, and I'm not just talking about sort of the obvious grisly cases of coercion. It's just a sort of, let's just get on with it, and I'm not really into it, kind of situation, which I'm sure happens all the time. Also, I think a lot of the time people can only have sex if they're on some kind of drug, including alcohol. That doesn't help, and they're coy about telling their partners what they want. I mean, one of the ways that you run interference on people, if you're a dominant female baboon, you go around sort of whacking the other female baboons on the back of the head, and that raises their cortisol levels, and that makes it less likely
them
to
out
reproduce.
Yes.
I'm still recovering from a cold, so I cannot laugh that much, or I will begin coughing and I might not stop. Okay, so. Or you simply want to be close to your partner, or you'll get into the mood as things progress, or. There's a lot of reasons people have sex when they're not initially in the mood, and it doesn't have to involve coercion or alcohol. Sometimes there's even pragmatic reasons. But anyway, how about we not compare female humans to females of other species?
The conversation around female orgasm in culture is really interesting because it's almost always laid at the feet of the man's job to understand the woman's body better. And I think that this is it's like noble in a way. Women are sensitive about their bodies, and don't make them more fucking sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't seen the same thing. So if a woman didn't reach orgasm, a lot of the time it would be, well, why didn't you ask your partner to do this? And the foreplay wasn't there, and maybe attraction isn't there, and so on and so forth. Very rarely is the finger sort of pointed toward, well, maybe you're physiologically just unfortunate in this sort of a way or whatever. But if the reverse happens, if you have, I think kind of the only real equivalent that we have as men is not being able to get it up. But if that happens, I never see a headline that's like men not erect, women to blame. It's like men not erect, men to blame. Women not orgasming, also men to blame.
All my life, I've been told that men always want sex, they're always ready to go. So if a man didn't want sex, if he wasn't able to get or remain aroused, that was internalized as something I had failed at. Whereas the idea that women can get pleasure out of sex is something fairly new. And, well, typical heterosexual sex is geared toward men. His arousal is the start and his orgasm is the end. So it's not much of a surprise to me that we would have articles about how X, Y, and Z can help women orgasm during sex. It's not really something people have thought about, and it's also not something that's obvious, so it requires more work. Anyway, they discuss that women become more orgasmic as they get older, and what? I feel like I'm saying what a lot in this video.
Yeah, well, I wonder whether fears of signaling fecundity become less salient as you get older, right? It's like, who we kidding? I'm 47.
Yes,
I mean? Fucking menopausal. This isn't the first time, so I wonder if that's part of it.
So I've been doing a lot of reading the past few years about menopause, and it doesn't help with achieving orgasm. Now, not being able to get pregnant anymore can quite possibly play a role in being more willing to engage in sex, but I'm more inclined to believe that as we get older, we care less about what people think. And of course, we've had more time to figure out what we like and what works. And of course, from here we move on to hormonal birth control, and no, birth control doesn't change who you are or who you're attracted to. It does have side effects, low libido being one of them, and if you get on birth control and don't like how it makes you feel, please talk with your doctor about trying something else. There are a lot of options out there. Anyway, they then move on to the orgasm gap, and Dr. King at least mentions...
It's definitely there, because once a man gets erect, he's very likely to orgasm through penetrative sex. Although it's not certain by any manner of means, but he's very much more likely to. Whereas if a woman gets aroused, then there probably needs to be more than just penetration in order to create an orgasm in her. So there will probably need to be other things, and those things just might be lacking. Whether they're a bit of external stimulation, a bit of additional stimulation to other areas, or just highly vigorous penetration, which a lot of guys aren't providing because it's actually it's a physical demand.
I wonder if it occurs to either of them that women would be more interested in sex if it was built around our pleasure, and if sex didn't usually involve the expectation of penetration. Of course, they don't discuss this. They instead discuss a study where women think their marriages have the right amount of sex and men wish for twice as much. Chris does say that men actually don't sit around talking about the sex they're having as much as women think, and I have to admit, I never did buy that locker room talk thing, but it's nice to have confirmation. And then Well, they discuss how, apparently because of course no sources are linked, women watch violent porn more than men and fetishize violent killers, and in saying this, I realize they're trying to figure out a way this fits into, like, mating preferences, instead of reflecting on how society might have shaped these results. But anyway.
Because as soon as you say women can't be deceptive during sex, women can't be coercive during sex, they can't be manipulative, they can't steal partners from others, they can't monkey branch, they can't keep their male friends, all the male friends they've got, the orbiters. Interestingly, they all seem to be around about the similar level of attractiveness to the man that they're with. All of this stuff. And it's like, no, women don't do any of that stuff. Or they do it, but they don't do it at that much of a level. It's like, right, okay, so you're telling me that women are completely passive sexual objects who have no agency over their future, and all that they do is blow with the wind with whatever man comes in front of them first.
Anti-feminists hate it when people say this, but women can do whatever men can do. Women can lie, cheat, and steal. The issue with Chris's content is that he presents this information as though it's common to all women, and then tries to instruct his audience as to how to work with this, completely forgetting that women are, human. Chris seems upset with this idea that women are passive sexual objects, but that is how he presents women. Mysterious creatures that can't be figured out, yet easily swayed by money and dick size. And again,
it makes it sound like women are sort of conspiring behind the scenes, and some of them are, of course, but quite a lot of them aren't even aware that they're doing those things.
Dr. King is reinforcing Chris's belief, stated in another video, that women will do those things, be it friend zoning or sabotaging another woman, without even knowing they're doing it, or lying to themselves about why they're doing something, without even knowing they're lying to themselves. And that is why people take issue with Chris's content. Not because women are perfect angels who never do anything wrong, but because Chris presents them as not even humans, just creatures driven by hormones. And that is dehumanizing. At the end of the day, it's important to remember that, however fun and interesting these conversations might be, this is all just speculation and theorizing. And that's it for this video. My socials and Patreon are linked below, along with sources and resources. I would like to thank everyone for watching through to the end, and of course, I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons and Mr. O for staying with us for this whole filming session. Have a wonderful day, get some sun, and I'll see you in the next one.